Hello guys, in this video we'll go through the basics of Spring Boot. Using Spring Initializer, we'll create a simple project using a web dependency, and then using that we'll create a simple REST service and we'll call it, right, using simple get method. So the point is how quickly we can create using Spring Boot, how quickly we can create a project without configuring anything in the XMLs. So if you look into Spring framework itself, in the past, before pre-Spring Boot, we have to configure a lot of XML files. For example, how we handle beans creation, and how we configure beans, passing beans as constructor arguments. So there are tons of XMLs that we have to create just for simply creating a service or just to run any project, right? So it used to take a lot of time. So over the period of time, like number of years, Spring has evolved so much. So now all the plumbing work is taken care by Spring Boot, and even before that, how we used to deploy the application to the Tomcat server. We used to have a server in separate machine, and then we used to deploy our files to that server. But now with the Spring Boot, it comes with embedded server. It could be Tomcat, it could be Jetty, right? So because it's coming up with the server itself, by Spring Boot, well, all the code that you write, it's all going to be packaged with the server itself. So you can deploy, like you can run it like anywhere, right? It's not like you write a code and you deploy it somewhere else, right, where the server is running. So we'll quickly go through that. What does it look like? And also, it is not like a deployment. If you talk about deployment, it is not like a war deployment, right? If you notice, like we used to create the projects with a var extension, which is a web archive. So that's what we used to deploy to the Tomcat or WebLogic or the whatever those world servers were, right? So in this video, quickly we'll uh, create a template project and we'll quickly run it. So how easy it is, right? Let's get to it. So let's get to the documentation real quick of Spring Boot documentation, and then we'll create a template project using Spring Initializer. Okay, so that's Spring Boot, and then so you'll see a lot of documentation for Spring Boot modules. So we're going to start with Spring Boot here. It has the latest version is C.2.2. So a simple definition, if you see, it's makes it easy to create standalone and production grade Spring based applications, right? So there are some couple of features here. So always refer to the documentation as you go through the tutorial. Always get used to refer to the documentation, because that is the source of truth. And then once in a while you can look into the Google and stuff, but always rely on the documentation. Okay. So it has all the points that I mentioned earlier. But let's get to the template creation here. So go to the Spring Initializer. So Spring Initializer will help you to create a template project using the dependencies that you would like to add for your project. And then here you see a lot of options. In this case, we're going to use Maven as a build tool, and we use Java language, and let's take the latest version. And here let's name it Spring Tutorial, Spring Boot tutorial, right? And then here I think this is good. Okay, so mostly like, yeah, I think it should be good. So there's a package name, and then packaging jar. So it's gonna create a jar packaging which would be deployed to the embedded Tomcat. Okay, so 17. So let's add dependencies. So we're gonna develop a REST endpoint in this tutorial, like it's the web service which with the simple get endpoint. Okay, so for that we need Spring Web, and then look at this. So it says build web including RESTful applications using Spring MVC as well, and uses Apache Tomcat, which is embedded is default embedded container. Okay, let's add one more dependency. uh, probably we may need actuator dependency. So what actuator does is, so it will help you to monitor if this container is up and running. So for example here, supports built-in endpoints that let you monitor and manage your application, such as application health, metrics, and sessions, etc. So with this dependency, it provides the monitoring capability of your app. Okay, let's add that. So I think for now we're good. Let's generate. So it's created here. Downloads. Let's unzip that. So for this tutorial, I'm using Visual Code editor, which is pretty lightweight, and you can add extensions as needed, so it doesn't have to be heavyweight editor. Okay, um, so let's go through anatomy of the project. So you have source folder created with the main and test folders. Under main you have Java resources. It's pretty traditional folder structure that we keep maintaining with the Java based projects. And then you have Spring Boot package name, and then you have Java class here. Resources, it's static templates. Currently they are empty, and application properties, it is empty file as well. So we don't have to go deep into this every file into it. So in the upcoming videos I'll take quick topics and then we'll go deep into it. Okay, for now focus on how easy it is to run a application using Spring Boot, okay, without any XML configurations. It is tests, and then look at POM file. So this is basically it's related to Maven. Every Maven project has this POM file. Okay, and then you have a list of dependencies that you specified, you asked for, right? We asked for Spring Starter Actuator and then Spring Starter Web. Okay, this is automatically added by Spring Boot. So when you run it, it's going to download all the dependencies from Maven repository, and then it will run it. Okay, so we haven't done any changes, right? Let's go ahead and run it. And then the other thing is, depending on your editor, you may have all the Spring related stuff. Like if you are using Spring Tool Suite, it comes with a lot of inbuilt capabilities that you can run it. You can monitor all the, you can see what's going on with the services and stuff. But with the Visual Code, we need to add extensions. So in our case, we are developing Spring Boot based application. So let's go to the extensions and search for Spring Boot, right? So there are tons of extensions like that, but here we can pick up, this is one that developed by VMware, which is pretty good one. Like it comes with other 3 extensions, which is very useful. Spring Boot tools, initializer, Java support, and Spring Boot dashboard. Okay, so I already installed this. Basically go ahead and install that, and because of that, so you see it automatically shows you Spring based apps here, and then beans. If you have any beans, you can monitor here, and then endpoint mappings. Right now we don't have any endpoints, right? So let's go ahead and run it. So look at the logs here. You see it's starting the Tomcat server here, and then if you look at exposing one endpoint, we haven't written any endpoint here, right? Did we write any actuator endpoints here? No, it's all coming from Spring Actuator dependency, which has created these endpoints for us, and then you can call them, right? It will give you the health of the service, like the whole app, right? Let's go ahead and create it. It's started and it's running on 8080. Let's go ahead and call that localhost 8080 actuator. Okay, see, it is following Hethios principle. It is giving you the self links as well, and then if you want to look at the check the health of the app, so basically it is giving this health path, right? So actuator / health, and then that, so it gives status up. So the point is how easy it is to quickly create and making it up and running, right? So this is pretty good. Like this is a very basic setup, right? And here you see all the properties that is coming up with this that is showing all the properties that's coming up with the Spring Boot for this project. You can see in the heap memory and all that, right? um, so let's go ahead and create one other endpoint, the custom endpoint, and then see like what kind of things that does and how easy it would be, right? So let's go ahead and create in this folder, right? Create in Spring terminology we call it as a controller, right? Basically we are creating a REST controller. um, let's say you are creating a fruit controller which is gonna give the fruits, right? It will give you the fruit response, right? Fruit controller. Yeah, it can be anything. I'm just taking one example there, real life example. Okay. It created fruit controller class. And so to make any controller as a REST controller, you need to use REST. You need to annotate with the REST controller annotation, so which is what gonna make identify this class as a controller by the container, right? So what we need one get method, right? So let's create that, and it's going to give us some fruit response, right? Let's create fruit class, and it's gonna be get fruit method. Okay. So let's go ahead and create this class. Quick fix create class fruit. Okay, fruit.java, and it needs to return fruit. So before that, we need to annotate this get fruit map, right? So we can use get mapping, right? And it automatically create method as well, so maybe we can use that method itself. So here we're gonna return the fruit, and then here get fruit, right? Here we're gonna return the fruit class. Okay. So here the path, probably we will say fruit, right? It can be a single fruit or fruits, right? Just for the sake of example, that's fine. So it has this request param annotation, where you can pass as a query parameters, right? If you want. In this simple example we don't need that. Let's get rid of that. And so right now the fruit object doesn't have anything, right? So let's go ahead and add some meat to it. Private name, private string fruit name, right? And then let's add constructor to it, and string name. You can also use record as well in Java. So basically that will be simple to add. And then let's generate getter method for that. Getter get fruit, right? So here get name for the property, because without getters it cannot it uses a Jackson library behind the scenes to convert this response into the JSON. So you need to have these getters for the property that you are specified, right? Okay, so we specified that, and then here let's pass, let's say you can also pass it as query parameters, but here I'm just hard coding for now, apple, right? Okay, so we created quick endpoint with a get mapping, and then we're sending response as a fruit, right? So it doesn't require any other annotations, because you specify it as a REST controller. It automatically figures out that this is not a Spring MVC. It is basically a REST endpoint, REST API. So that's how it's gonna be able to understand that. Without that, it expects that to be a Spring MVC. I mean, since also we don't have a dependency, Spring MVC dependency in the dependency list, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't get confused about it. Okay. So let's go ahead and run it. So let's rerun it, and so look at it's running now. And if you go to the dashboard, you can see there is a fruit controller here, right? And then you see in the endpoint mappings here you have /fruit. So let's go ahead and call that endpoint slash fruit. What would you expect? It has to return the name of the fruit, which is apple, right, in the form of JSON, right? Fruit, and then see, look at here the response, name apple. So you developed the REST API with a one endpoint with zero configuration. All we did was here just creating the controller, added a couple of annotations. We haven't dealt with any server configurations. Where is this var file and where do we deploy in the server, like in the slash path, some folder, so the server can recognize that. So all that, nothing, right? And if you look at XMLs, zero, application properties, zero. So they made a lot easier with a Spring Boot. This is just a beginning, right? So yeah, that's all, friends, for today. Going forward, like we will go incremental approach, like we'll take Spring Boot, and then next steps, like we'll talk about other modules in general, like developing applications using Spring World, right? So yeah, let's try this out, and then in next video we'll talk about some other modules or concepts of Spring, etc., right? All right, thank you.